So as human beings, when we learn something, it's very natural for us to want to go and teach it, like tell it. Here's how to do this, right? So, but actually, that is not the best way for someone to learn. The best way for someone to learn is to help them discover, as I mentioned. And I'm not going to use that special word yet, okay? I'm going to hide that word. Okay, so I have a special word that we're going to be focused on in a minute. But before we focus on that special word, did I mention this already? Leadership cannot be taught, but you can learn it. All right. Before we talk about the magic word, because there's a magic word for today. Does anyone know there's a magic word in real estate? Actually, there's 3 important things in real estate if you're going to buy and sell. Do we have real estate people here tonight? Okay. So what are the 3 important things? And Mary Lou, can you tell us?
Location, location, location.
1 is location, 2 is location, 3 is location.
And she gets a prize.
You get a prize! Yeah. So there are 3 important things in really being a successful counselor on the RYLA weekend. And it's a magic word, and we're going to reveal it in a minute. It's facilitate, facilitate, facilitate. What is it? Facilitate, facilitate, facilitate. All right, turn to your neighbor and give him a high five. Say, you did it. All right, so we're going to bring Susan on. Take it away, Susan.
So let's talk a little bit about today, an overview of your staff training. We want to make this day as successful as possible. Here's what we're going to cover today. We're going to cover the overview of your 3 days at RYLA and the experience. We're going to have guidelines and ground rules. We're going to have experimental exercises of some of the same activities you will facilitate during RYLA. This will help you feel and understand what your campers are going through. And then we will put you at comfort to conduct these exercises and to do the most important part of the exercise, which is the debrief. That is going to be your major learning today, how to do a debrief. But sorry, we're not going to be doing zip lining in this room. And of course, I'd like to mention again, we're going to have the fingerprinting going on all through the morning. So if you see an empty spot in that room, please do go in and have your fingerprints taken. Only takes a moment. And as Patrice mentioned, we will have ongoing support from now through the end of RYLA. We will tell you more and more what that means for you. Nothing invasive, nothing time-consuming, just active support that will help you. You will be modeling the way as well as enabling others to act. We, Patrice and I, hope to model the way, inspire a shared vision, challenge the process, enable others to act, and encourage the heart. And here you see your 5 shared practices.
I'm Vanna.
Your family.
Has anybody ever watched that? Okay, so I might need you to be my scribe if you want to do this. So I'm going to share with you. Well, let's talk for a minute. Would you like to know how to get the most out of this day that you've given up? Would you like to know that?
Yes.
Raise your hand. All right, good, you're in. So we have ground rules and guidelines for today. Now you might want to really pay attention to these because you, as counselors with your teams, we're calling them teams this year, not families. If you've done it before with families, it's teams. You and your teams, when you're getting together with the campers, you're going to be setting up ground rules these are for today, but if there's something valuable that you learn through the sharing of these guidelines, please incorporate it in when you work with your teams. So the first one is confidentiality. So we're going to have it today, you know, what happens in here stays in here, right? And it's, when we have a confidential space, I used to call it the dome of silence, right? Elaine knows that. When you have a confidential space, it makes it easy for people to share, or easier. And, you know, because they know that your information is going to be held sacred, and you're going to honor that. Okay, so are we all in for that? Yes, raise your hand. All right, we got yeses on that. The second guideline is, okay, I'm doing this on purpose. I want you're going to practice this, so watch carefully, okay? Do you see what's going on here? I am taking off the expert hat. So you're going to be taking off your expert hat. Let's all do that right now. Take off your expert hat and put it to the side. And you're going to be putting on your lifelong learner hat. Well done. Very good. So it's really important. There's a lot of expertise in this room. When I look out and I see people of all ages and all abilities, but I do know there is a lot of wisdom and a lot of experience in this room. If you have that wisdom and experience, we challenge you to take your skills to the next level, because there's a saying, there's always more to learn. Can we say that together? There's always more to learn. What a group. You're all awake. These are just, you know, little tests right now. All right. So the third thing I want you to keep in mind is to play full out, 100%. So, you know, some people are natural sharers and their hands always going up, and then there's other people who are a little bit more reserved. But what I ask you to do in your own way is to give your own 100%. So be yourself, give 100%. Are we all in for that?
Yes.
All right, turn to your neighbor, give them a high five and say, 100%.
100%. We got this, guys.
This is a good group. This is fun. All right, I got out of bed for a purpose today. Okay. Now, along those lines, giving 100%, you know, sometimes people overshare and they might give 150 or 200%. What I want you to do is be mindful of leaving space for others to share. So I want you to self-monitor, if you tend, like me, to get long-winded, to self-monitor and to put a period at the end of the sentence. Are we on board with that? Yes? Okay, great. So just leave room for others to participate, and one person at a time will be asking questions and asking for shares and doing debriefing. So if you wouldn't mind raising your hand to share, would that be okay? All right. And sometimes we'll do popcorn style, where you're just shout it out. But most of the time, we want you to raise your hand, and one at a time. All right. Keep an open mind. So there's an old saying, something about a parachute. A parachute doesn't work unless it opens. The same with the mind. So keep an open mind today as you learn. And I want you to ask for clarification. So if something is not clear, we're going to be giving directions for doing experiential exercises, or maybe we'll be in the debrief and somebody says something and it's not quite, maybe you didn't get it, or I didn't get it. I'm going to say, can you say more about that? So just go ahead and make sure that you have the information. We want you to have the information you need so that when you leave here, you have some clarity on what you're going to be doing. Okay? All right. Now, we have bathrooms over there. We already talked about that. Because we're going straight through, which is not my preference, but there's a game today, isn't there? Some kind of game going on? Oh. Some kind of game. I'm from Philadelphia, you know, we have the Eagles, so what can I say? Look at the Phillies. 76ers, you know, whatever. So what I ask you to do, we're all adults here, okay? So this is adult learning. So I want you to take care of your own body, your own mind, and your own spirit. So if you need to get up, your back is hurting you, or you need to stretch, feel free to do that. The restrooms are there. But just take care of yourself. Get a drink of water, okay? In fact, water is good for learning. You know, it really wakes your cells up. All right. Anything else? Stay for the entire training. Are we all up for that? Raise your hand if you're staying for the entire training, because there might be a big prize at the end. Yes. Another football, right? Yeah, we're leaving that. And yes, okay. Yeah, this is kind of secret, but I'm gonna let it out a little bit right now. There is a grand finale that you will not want to miss, because this is going to set the tone for the entire RYLA weekend. So you're going to want to stay till the very end, because something is going to be revealed. Was that Harry Potter when they did the hat thing? They revealed what dorm they were in or something? Okay. It's not, you know, quite like that, but close. All right. So is there any other guidelines do you think we should include? Raise your hand if we have another important ground rule or guideline. Did I cover everything? Have fun!
Why isn't it here when you sing? Why does it keep wanting to go up? People push it up. But we don't need to push it up. Why does it keep going up? We're just putting a stick on the ground. It's not supposed to be that hard. Some people are taller. Is that the only reason? I don't want that darn stick to go down.
It's because there's more force applied than the gravity. It applies.
Yes.
You don't want your finger to go on the stick. So if you drop your finger down, you drop the stick, then
Sweet.
I think a part of it is get around the general idea is that we're just trying to get the stick down. So, and like everyone has that shared idea, like, oh, here's how to do it. But in that first like stage, what's happening is that we're not actually saying what weight we're gonna go at, like how if we're like counting exercise like we're going to be able to do that. It's just everyone's like, okay, just like get the stick up.
It's hard to hear back here.
So what I said was that.
Stand up.
So what I said was that it's also in part due to that everyone is just like having that shared idea that you just got to get the stick down. But in that first stage, you're not really communicating at that part where, like, how fast we're going to go, how fast each person's going to go. It's just, okay, everyone just, like, the goal is to get the stick down. So just slowly, gradually move down. And then, you like, in that first part, you don't wait for people. You're just, like, thinking, oh, we can do this. And that's, like, sort of,
Anusha, where are you? Oh, she's in the restroom, okay. So, Anusha was really great in the sense of, she said, who has already done this activity before? We want to give those who've never done this activity before an opportunity. And can we come to an agreement that we're going to let them have the opportunity to enjoy this activity? And that changed the entire outlook on the activity. So I know I did this when I was in RYLA, many moons ago, but I forgot the concept. And so it was great because it provided the other people who were newer, which was like more than half the people in the group, to actually share their ideas. And so what you were just sharing, I didn't know your name, but right here, like it gave us an opportunity to like count down, take time. That's why we were so quick. You know, we recognized like someone, God, Eureka, was it? No, it was you. They shared like, I'm short. And so I said, hey, I might be doing a lot of CrossFit, but like I cannot get my leg down. So we were more open to new ideas. So I just want to appreciate and call out Anusha for saying that, because it provided other folks, because like we're coming in with our biases, right? My RYLA experience when I was in high school is not your RYLA experience. My RYLA experience in high school is not this upcoming high school student's RYLA experience. So we as camp counselors and alumni have an opportunity to step out of our biases and make sure we, as facilitators, give them an opportunity to experience this from their own eyes. Now, if they get stuck, our role as facilitators to ask those thoughtful, open-ended questions so they can figure out those solutions. So that's what I felt when I was doing this healing exercise.
There are two big points about these activities that I wanted to share. And the first one, with the ropes, there can be a first mover. There can be an authoritative voice, a leader who really takes charge and helps to create the shape. And that's why the ropes is, in a lot of ways, about inspiring a shared vision and modeling the way. So that stick is only going down one way if you all work together. And if one person takes the lead and decides to step up and say that this is the way it's going to go and we're just going to get this stuff, that stick is just going to stay a foot above all your heads. And so the helium stick activity is a lot more about encouraging each other and enabling each other to act together, to facilitate a sort of joint action. And we're going to do these activities with the students as well, so I'm glad that we had a chance to practice them and to hear some of the feedback about how we can make it better. Like, I've only been to 2 RYLAs, so I didn't know that it had ever been done before. Thank you for letting me know that. And it also helps us understand, how do we step up into leadership in moments when it's not clear who is supposed to be the leader. And that's really what a lot of RYLA is about. Who is supposed to be the leader? Is it us, or is it the kids? And how do we shape those moments for them to step up, but also to succeed? So with that, I'm going to hand it back to Susan. We're still ahead of schedule.
Yes. So once again, you experienced another 3 activities that you are going to participate with your campus. So just as we told you, today is hands-on of everything you're going to be doing and feeling at the camp. Okay? I now have the pleasure to introduce you to someone who's probably going to start by saying it's only him between you and the Super Bowl. Don't let him tell you that. This is John Dean, and I'll let you talk about yourself.
Hi, and I really am probably the last thing between you and the game. When they put me in this slot, I asked if there was any way we could maneuver around so I wouldn't be getting stink eye from everybody. But the next exercise is more for your skill set going into the RYLA camp. And they're passing out right now a 2-page handout. When you get it, I'd like you to read the first page, and then on page 2, there's a ranking. It should only take you a few minutes, but read the first page and go to page 2 and do the ranking. What we're looking at here, like many of the activities you're going to be doing at RYLA camp, just like the rope exercise, there's no one answer. And one of the things we want to highlight with the kids is they're coming down there and they're used to doing math problems and physics problems where the answer is 14. And they just need to look at it longer, they'll figure it out. But there may be many ways to do the ropes exercise here. And anyhow, I'll be quiet, take a look at the handout. If anybody didn't get one, just raise your hand. Thank you.
the activity, one of the many purposes, is to have the debrief. So you're going to ask people, what opportunities did you find here? What challenges did you have? What did this make you think of? Because when these exercises are being put together, we as the training team, we're thinking you could learn geography, something about people around the world, medical, whether the cleft lip, the palate, what it's about. You can learn about what Rotarians do and the medical missions that they go on that include medical as well as non-medical volunteers. Yes?
Are the no-nos going to be assembled in individual teams or in a big room? And are the campers going to be told how to do it? Or is that part of the exercise?
Thank you.
How they organize themselves?
So as we go through the 3 days of camp, you will have, let's say, one period of time where your group is a zip line. One group of time where your group is doing some other, like helium stick that you're going to be learning about shortly. And then you move on to the next and the next activity. This is going to be one of those activities in a certain room that only your team will be working at one time with. Yes, you will be giving the directions. They will be literally making the no-nos. Does that answer your
But
question?
are they going to organize themselves on how they assemble them? Or is someone going to tell them, okay, you guys come over here and you put the glue on and you put the sticks on?
Great question. As a counselor, you can open that up to your team, whether you want to make a line of people putting out the flannel material, somebody else doing sticks, somebody else gluing, or people can make one at a time, whatever your team wants to do. There are lots of ways, as we've learned today, lots of opportunities to do things with the same outcome, but doing them many ways. Yes.
Does each person make one, or?
So hopefully lots.
Okay, great.
We need a lot of them. So just think, one patient needs 2. And they're going to go all around the world on many team missions. Is that helps? Yes.
Will the history of Alliance for Smiles be included by, like, if it's an alumni leading this activity, will that history be given? Is that on us to do? Will it be in the handbook? I ask this because in past years, the actual explanation of shelter box and other things kind of got a little lost.
Yeah.
So I think especially if this is a Rotary-sponsored project as well as camp, it's going to be really important even for so many of the people in this group who aren't familiar with Rotary to be able to speak to that in an accurate way.
So we'll have papers ready with the history. So just to put that out there, Alliance for Smiles was actually created by Rotarians, just so you know, medical and non-medical. They've been around for 16 years, and they're doing missions every year all over from China to Myanmar, Honduras, Guatemala, Philippines, all over the place. Yes.
I think what Stacy's asking is in previous years we've had shelter box, but there wasn't an adequate explanation on the significance of shelter box and why it was important that they were there. Is there going to be someone who's
Yes.
on stage who presents it the day before, or a pinpoint person who stays at the station the whole time to explain it to everybody? Because I think it's really important that if they're there, they should know why it's significant that why they're there.
So
Especially,
not on stage, because we're doing a lot less of that this year at RYLA. But you will have it on the table with the materials. You will have a complete explanation and complete instructions and links.
So we can, this is all good input which we can do. Also, we'll be doing a review of all these pieces the night before. So you don't have to like memorize everything here, but we'll sort of go through the schedule.
And our goal is to make it as easy and clear for you as possible for the success of RYLA. Yes. Very similar. The two organizations are very similar. One of the differences, Alliance does also vocational training teams when they go on missions, like the next upcoming one, there's a plan to teach nurses in Honduras. Does that help?
Yeah, I was curious. This is not what we heard.
Yes.
Oh, it is?
Yes. They get lots of grants from all over Rotary, 5150 and everywhere. Yes.
I understand we have a schedule to move forward with. I'll keep it brief. Maybe it's the koala in me, but personally, when I'm attached to a volunteer project, I kind of like to know the history and the reasoning and the context behind it. I feel it's a lot of pressure to put on to the camp counselor, or like, I don't know, I just feel that if you really are passionate about this as like a team effort, it would be more important to like have at least 5 minutes from folks from Alliance for Smiles or other young people or other people who've been affected by it. Because I'm a Rotarian and I feel it'd be more heart to heart, and that's just me. I know that that's why I asked about the one sheet. I might be a Rotarian and an interactor and a road ractor, but when I am trying to motivate a team or help to shepherd a team, it's helpful to like know these other pieces.
Perfect.
To encourage them.
So what we will do that night is we have an amazing video, all of 4 minutes and 32 seconds. So we'll show that night. We will have a paper. We will have people there to answer the questions, and we will have everything out for, I thank you for that. Okay?
Yeah, and I just want to say, take the pressure off.
Yeah.
You do not have to be an expert in Alliance for Smiles. You don't have to know and inspire and do all that. The video will be there. You'll have a sheet. Your job is just to educate a little bit and then facilitate the
Just a thought after your comment, we might be able to play that video before for the campers doing it. I'm thinking for the counselors, but we should do it for both. Thank you. Thank you. Yes.
I think that this is number one, a fantastic idea, one of the best things that I've seen us come up with for the kids to do as far as being part of the project. I think it's awesome. And the other thing is, like, I know a lot of people get nervous, but this right here is a perfect opportunity to make the koala in your group be the team leader and be the peacock, and to be the one to say, okay, you do this, and then, you know, have maybe the lion be more the analytical one and more planning, you know, just, especially if you're new or you haven't been around for a while, you just kind of look at it that way because there's going to be a lot around those animals and the personalities that you have. And so when you look at it, it's just, this is going to be a way that you want them to determine how it goes. Here's all the supplies, this is what we need to do, and then let them kind of lead it. So I just,
Thank you.
yeah.
This will be a camp. The picture will be a camp. Thank you for the ideas. We'll have the video, which is an amazing video from Guatemala just from September of last year that one of the volunteers did to music, which sums up a whole lot. And we will have a sheet with instructions and answering all sorts of these questions. Any other suggestions or comments or needs?
I think a really important thing to know, not just about Alliance for Smiles, but the overall of camp for like the new counselors, is that like you're purposely paired with somebody who is an experienced like counselor, so just ask questions, like they know how to like, you know, adapt or just like, you know they know what to do. Just ask your counselor questions. Really good.
Did everybody hear that?
No.
You get to stand up and say it again.
Use your RYLA voice, Shirley.
So the important thing to remember is that you are purposely paired with somebody who is an experienced camper. So if you're a first-year counselor, then you're with somebody who's done this before. So you can ask them questions. They know how to adapt. They know what to do. They have some kind of idea of like how to move forward and how to like facilitate.
Going all through RYLA and leadership training. Thank you. Anna, so what do you see as what we just did in relationship to the 5 practices?
So I'm going to focus on enable others to act, so kind of a burgundy color. And then number 7 says foster collaboration by building trust and facilitating relationships. So I think going forward, this experience has been enhanced by the opportunity that we shared of sharing a little bit about each other, our values, and what to accomplish. And then strengthen others by increasing self-determination and developing competence. We have a lot to build for one another and also with our teams. And so I think I'm looking forward to seeing the strengths that are brought into our team going forward.
Thank you. So I have another question for you. Is your partner someone you would trust to lead you? Think about that, and I'd like an answer, please. No, we're not
How shy you
Through this activity, your team will get to know each other, and you will be fostering collaboration by building trust and facilitating relationships. So you have just gone through something that your team will be going through. You now know how they will be feeling. And I'm just going to put an aside note on that. The language for RYLA this year, you might be noticing, is it's your team. It's a much more professional atmosphere at RYLA. That is what we're bringing to RYLA. Okay? Now,
So, model the way. Here was our model, right? Can someone tell me what Susan modeled that will be very useful in your group? Raise your hand if you have the answer. There could be a prize. What did she model?
wait.
Wait, oh, Josh, I can't throw that far.
Yeah, you
can.
Jesse for the assist.
All right.
Oh.
So I gave you the prize before you gave me the answer.
Yeah, I was gonna say facilitate.
Facilitate. And what we showed here, these are just generic. You're going to come up with your own questions that will stimulate thought and open people's minds. A closed question is a yes or no, or, what color, do you like best?
A
Blue?
one-word answer.
Right. But mostly these are open-ended questions that Susan demoed. So throughout the day, we'll be demoing what you're doing, and you'll be doing it at camp. How's that? Sound good?
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. And now we have Connor. Please come and introduce yourself.
Hi,
Connor.
Connor, I'm with the classification educator from Rotary Club of San Francisco. So far, we've used a very participatory style. We're all invited to stand up and speak our minds. I would like to use a different pedagogy, maybe one that you'll employ with the youth when you're working with them, the Socratic style. And it works a little bit better. I can see May is looking away like this. It works a little bit better when you have trust with your group, right? And I think we have some trust now. So Howard, would you happen to know what RYLA stands for?
Nope.
That's okay. Jenny, would you happen to know what RYLA stands for?
Yes, I do.
Would you like me to share?
I love that.
Okay. It stands for Rotary Youth Rotary Youth Leadership Award.
Amazing! It was really, my strategy here was to go with the newbies, and then on the third, to pick someone who was a veteran, but yeah, you're an expert. That's right, the Rotary Youth Leadership Awards. And I really wanted to focus on the leadership because that's our goal. That's our mission, is to bring leadership to young people through this experience over this amazing weekend down in the mountains of Santa Cruz. There's a quote that I really like and I'd like to discuss. Leadership is a way of thinking. It's a way of acting. And most importantly, leadership is a way of communicating. I'd like to open it up for a discussion and we can go back to participatory. What do you guys think about that quote? Leadership is a way of communicating. And maybe in your experience, how have you seen leadership through communication? Yes.
So when you're talking about leadership and communication, I realized just now that I failed as a leader in my communication because Howard's one of my newest members in my club and I didn't explain to him what RYLA meant. I just said, hey, you should go be a counselor. It's a lot of fun working with youth. It's our big camp we do every year, so I didn't tell him what it meant. So I just assume everybody already knew. I keep forgetting that.
Thank you. A couple more. Sam?
Hi, excuse me, Sam Eriksson. I'm also a friend of Rotary. This will be my first year as a counselor. My thought on communication is that oftentimes we think about how is my voice heard, how do I present myself to a group, and I think that's one aspect, but in keeping with our enabling others to act theme, I think a huge part of leadership is also knowing when to move out of the way and let other people or encourage other people to step in and communicate and presenting a safe space for them to have a voice.
Thank you. Mary Ellen. Maybe one more person who could share a way.
I think with regard to communication and leadership, it's really important to adhere to this quote that I love. First, strive to be, paraphrasing, first strive to understand before being understood. And I think that goes into the most important piece of us as human beings, is being heard and being understood. So if you come from a place of, I want to understand who you are, what matters to you, I think that is a really important piece of communication, because that opens a door for someone to feel safe with you because you've got the other person's best interest at heart. So leadership, that's what
Yeah. Well, first of all, just as a general point of communication, some of us old folks hearing may not be as vibrant as the younger ones. So if you're trying to communicate to a group this size, make sure you're talking to the whole group and not just the people in front of you. You know, speak loud and enunciate, and turn your face to see everybody. But when I was a college professor, and I taught aspects of communication, one of the things that I learned is that, is this phrase, that communication is a leap of faith, that what you say and what you intend to mean is received by the listener in the way you intended it. And so you can't necessarily assume that the words you said and the meaning behind them are always what the listener is hearing.
Thank you. Art, did I see you?
Rotary Club and the evening. Communication is more than just speaking and making sure that you're clear. Communication is also actively listening to other people so that there is true communication. So people understand, you understand what they're saying, and you can enunciate what you, and bring across what you really want to say.
Thank you. Maybe two more. Okay, if you want to go, what's your name? I'm sorry.
Oh, Jesse.
Jesse.
Yeah, so just in thinking about leadership and communication, one thing that came to mind is really, the difference between leadership and management. And management is really about making sure everyone's doing what they need to do, but leadership is a step more than that because you want to bring out the best in whoever you're leading. And that can only really be done through communication, whether you're actively listening, asking the right questions, really encouraging people to not only get to know each other, but how do you bring out the best in someone? So communication is pretty key in that.
Thank you.
I'm going to bring up the caboose.
Hi, I'm Veronica. So I was a camper last year, and I'm not part of the Rotary Club. But okay, so last year as a camper, I think where to support communication is a big part of leadership. Was during the road courses that we went on. I feel like that exemplifies that if you don't communicate well, or if you're not so confident in yourself to believe that you have the potential to put a part of your ideas and thoughts into accomplishing the task, then it's your group might not succeed. They really need you too as much as you need them. And I think at one point we couldn't figure out how to get across to another word. And we were all pretty stuck, but then everyone just started coming up with little bits of ideas, and those parts of communication came together into one whole idea that ended up letting us succeed. And then also just the first day of arriving at camp, the courage it takes to put yourself into this leadership position and speak out first, ask questions even the most simplest question, what's your favorite color? It starts off that bond between your family members. And yeah, I think that's something.
That's wonderful. So in this last activity we just did, we've tried to put a lot of structure around how we communicate. We've thought about in what order we ask questions, we've made the questions ahead of time, we've laid out some ground rules for how to talk about the questions, and the idea was to create structure, to make it easier to get to know each other, to facilitate a little social bonding. But I want to introduce us to a different kind of activity, which is all about communicating and all about building our leadership, called the vocational. And this one doesn't have as much structure, it's just open-ended. We do vocationals with students across.
We're going to come back, and for the next 10 minutes, you will come with your group at your table, and you're going to discuss the following questions. So, once you've added up your numbers and you've figured out what your animal is, it could be either lion, peacock, koala, or an owl, you'll tell your group what your animal is. And you'll also discuss the upside and the downside of that leadership style. And so we recognize that each table might not have every animal, but we'll come back as a group and go through that afterwards. So currently, just discuss the upsides and downsides of the leadership style that you basically had filled out. And then also discuss, and did you think that the animal you ended up with was the primary animal of your leadership style? And also what your secondary style is, because I know some of you may have gotten pretty close numbers with some certain animals. So we'll do that for the next 10 minutes with your group.
Ask them to show their season. 30 and 2 services.
I feel like we started at 6, and now he's like,
He was my teacher, by the way. He was my teacher.
I know, when I see it, I feel like...
That was like, that year. That was when we're experiencing something
Easy. Very easy.
I'm not analytical.
Is this your king? Is this your king?
I mean, MC or MIC, you know, I mean. Work for me. MC stuff. With the I can do the first. You can ask me. You can do a first game.
Anna Zambrano from the Rotary Club of South San Francisco. So I think challenge the process would come into kind of summarizing what we did today. I heard that some people went through an organic process within their table groups, and some people approached it a little bit different than others, and I think that's important feedback for us to have so that we know that there's different ways to approach when
Hi, I'm Jaden. I go to Cappuccino. Honestly, I'm an alumni. I said inspired to share vision because when Steven started talking about his vocational, it really influenced us to talk on a more deeper level. And I remember that at RYLA on the first night, we already jumped into like our emotional impact and like what was going on in our life. So like Cindy and Steve were my leaders and counselors. So someone started off with saying something that was really deep, and it really influenced everyone to talk about something deeper and something more emotionally impacting on their life. So I really like that about the vocational.
I'm Kendra Canning from Harbor Rotary in San Rafael. One of the ways that we kind of prompt the really meaningful parts of conversation in YPO, which is Young Presidents Organization, they say, talk about the top and bottom 5% of your life. So that because most conversations kind of happen in the 70 to whatever, but where it's really meaningful, it's in the bottom 5% and the top 5%. So maybe there's a way to encourage, going for the big things in the conversation. I mean, after you've built trust, et cetera, but it's an easy way to refer. Like, we don't want to know your to-do list, right? We want to know what's heavy on your heart or what you're celebrating, those kind of things.
And what kind of prize are we going to give Larry? Larry, you might get the
Super Bowl tickets.
Thank you, Connor. Thank you, everyone. All right, well, I'm excited about the next portion of this training, this experiential day, because I'm about to bring up someone who has been at RYLA as a counselor, I believe 5 times, maybe. I hope I'm right, five-ish times, and has been a RYLA camper, and then became an alum, and went on to UC Berkeley, has an amazing story, not only a senior student there, but a teacher as well, and has his own software company. Pretty amazing person. So it is my honor to introduce the next trainer of the day, Ish.
Thank you all so much. Crazy. Some of you in this room know me 5 years ago. I was bald. So that was completely different. White pants, Yeezys, yeah, things have changed. We've come a long way. And just like I've come a long way, you know, becoming a leader and growing into my own, leader and coming out of my shell, I'm sure the rest of you have done the same. And you've all kind of done that. And especially those who have been campers, but everybody in this room who has so much life and so many different experiences that they've been able to, come out of and grow as leaders. And so our next kind of assessment here is actually, or activity, is an assessment that will allow you to understand what your leadership style is. And I know some of you have already taken this assessment, but there are those who haven't. But I would encourage you to be present, because I know that every single year everybody's looking forward to this assessment to see if they're the same exact animal. And you'll get to understand in a moment what I mean by animal, but as a leader, you kind of have to figure out what your dominant traits are, right? What are those traits that you have that are natural, where in any given instant, you kind of follow those specific traits. And so this assessment will kind of tell you about what those dominant traits are. And it'll also allow you to learn more about what you can improve on. But before I give you too much information, I'd like to take the next, let's say, 10 minutes to fill out the assessment and before we get into the actual discussion. Thank you.
Put it into pen.
Yeah, we're going to get that for you. Pens are coming. Pens to the rescue.
If you have pens, please share. I have pen.
Look at your card there.
I realized I never told you that I was a Rotary Club apostasy. I think this act falls under enable. Enable others to act, so that when you understand exactly what she was just saying about the multilingual, then you can enable the campers.
Yeah. Anybody else?
Yeah, I think it could also fall under the inspire, shared vision, is understanding the collective of how the different parts of your group are going to work together is going to help you kind of model or lead the path forward together. Make sure everybody's on the bus before you drive it.
Totally. Yeah, I love that. Anybody else? Yeah, so as you kind of go through camp and you work with your teams, I emphasize that you bring it back to these 5 exemplary leadership styles, because every activity we do is going to be related to those 5 exemplary leadership styles, right? And so it's important to kind of keep bringing that up and really ingrain that within them throughout camp so they kind of understand where they fall and what's going on. And so I'm sure that somebody else will come up here about food, but I'd like to kind of end off with one little note about leadership, and that a lot of you in the room know that I have a pet parrot, and so I'll make a bird analogy here. I think in life there's 3 types of birds, for say leadership styles, right? And there's eagles, there's buzzards, and there's turkeys. Right? Eagles are regalists. They're high altitude birds. They're aggressive, but they know what they want. Right? Maybe it sounds like a lion, but it's not a lion. Right? Then you have buzzards, and buzzards are always stepping on other people's heads. Right? And then you have the worst type of bird, a turkey, because they're always trying to profile somebody. Translation: trying to be somebody they're not. Trying to act like they can fly, but they're not. So as you go out in the world, I encourage you to be an eagle through this camp. Thank you.
What? Yeah.
That was wonderful. Thank you so much. So now, we are on time, you guys. We're not running late, but yes, we know what's ahead this afternoon. Lynn has an announcement about lunches, but right before Lynn says that, I want you to take a note that there is a very large Post-it over here. And there are 30 different things on here. So as you grab your lunch, take a peek at this piece of paper, and we're going to tell you about it later. So, the cliffhanger! Exactly. Thank you, Patrice. So, as you walk by, either to and from getting your lunches, please take a look at this Post-it. Lynn.
Now, before you all run, I'll see if I can do a better job of explaining this. I am a peacock. So watch where I'm pointing, because how many vegetarians, pure vegetarians?
Let's start with this. Does anybody know what a cleft lip or cleft palate is?
Magic smile.
Everybody take your hand back here.
Come on, everybody.
We fell and we don't that one.
Best thing is like part of the club in the Club of Berkeley Precious Island.
Well, plus palate, you know, it's a birth defect. The baby is born with it, and it is surgically not that necessarily that hard to fix, but in a lot of countries around the world, they're unable to. I don't have money to repair that. And maybe we can talk about I forget what they call it, but that doctor team, but they travel and do the surgeries on the spot, and for the families and the children that need it, because they can't chew or they can't, once it's deformity, they're very difficult. So, and then we have a doctor in our club that does that.
Perfect. Thank you. So a cleft lip is where the lips does not close, and a palate where the palate, the roof of your mouth, is not closed. And this happens in utero. And what happens is it has lots of effects on the child. Why do these occur? No one really knows whether it's genetics or whether it's environmental or both. Yes, we've seen fathers and sons have them, where they both get repaired at the same time. So you know that maybe it is something genetic. There are medical missions that go around the world to repair cleft lip and palates. Often, these missions are funded by Rotary. Rotary gives grants. Rotary supplies volunteers, both medical and non-medical. So many of the people on these missions are Rotarians. What I'm showing here is a map of the world of which some of the places that our medical missions go on. On the back, you will see a lovely, what do you say? I'm going to say Burmese as opposed to a child from Myanmar who has a cleft lip, okay? Which is one of the places that Alliance for Smiles does travel to. At camp, we will be making what's called a no-no. As the name says, a no-no keeps a child from touching their lips or the roof of their mouth post-surgically. So on the little kidlets, we put these on in surgery, and it's just something soft and clean to keep them from bending their elbow. And that is the goal. Before they leave the hospital, these get tossed because they get extremely dirty, and we don't reuse them. So what we've learned is how necessary these are. What we're going to be doing at camp is taking fabric, soft flannel, soft, cute, nice, happy material, and making a no-no. You want to say that a little louder?
I really like that. That's very cool.
So it's something that we can do. It's a community service which the kids will absolutely love, which is something really needed. Let me tell you, they're really needed. As I mentioned earlier, I'm an RN, and I was lucky enough to work in the operating room, and I've gone on many missions, and these come in really handy if they're made and we can take them along. So it will help the campers learn something about geography. You can mention that the no-nos in here that they're going to be making at camp will go to places like Myanmar and Honduras, which are the upcoming missions. You can tell them a little bit about the medical process of what these are for and what they're going to be stopping. So they're going to be stopping little ones, 2 years and younger, from touching their lip and their mouth and their palate. One thing I didn't mention, which I should, is what happens when these kids are born with cleft lip and palates. So having a cleft lip and a cleft palate, you can have one, both, either or. It affects their speech, their development, their nutrition. They get bullied by other kids, and the families get ostracized. So what they're making affects an individual, a family, and a community. And it helps the whole community develop and move past a cute little child looking like this to looking a little bit different after their lip and or palate is fixed. And every mom loves their child no matter how they look. It'll just be a different look, is what I'm trying to say. Okay? So what happens with these is they get folded in half, this size. We're going to be taking 6 craft sticks, not exactly popsicle sticks, but similar. We're going to be lining them up.
I'm done.
The 6 craft sticks stay on half the fabric. They will get glued on both sides with just an Elmer's glue on both sides. And then the fabric will get folded over. Oops. And it'll look like this, where it's firm And the fabric will be supplied to you in the proper measurement. So they can't just be made any which way, because we really need to be able to use them in the operating room. Sure. You can see how the sticks are inside. They're separated. They're not right next to each other. The whole idea is so the elbow is unable to bend. How are they fixed to the arm? So what happens is you might see no-nos that have beautiful satin straps attached, where some people make them and actually sew the straps. They don't stay on though. So we're going to just do the simple way, making it as simple as possible, and it doesn't need to be complicated, and we tape them on. We use either a paper tape or rather preferably an adhesive tape, tie it around the arm or around the no-no, and it'll stay on. Any other questions on the no-no itself? Any questions? Yes.
Are they called no-nos because you're actually telling a kid no-no?
Yeah.
Just wanted to share.
So these, if you look online, they're actually called no-nos, and they get sold, like for a lot of money for some reason, to do the same job. And these only need to stay on for a few days, and then everything's fine for when the child's in the recovery room in the first couple days post-op. No, because they get dirty, and we don't like to do things between patients just like here. We take the same best practices along on mission trips, so we won't recycle them. Okay? Pardon? You can't, they have the sticks inside, and we're trying to, with the glue, it won't work. Right. Any other questions?
So what is the role of the counselor while?
So the counselor and the alum helping at that station will actually be teaching this, telling the RYLA campers why we're doing this, where the no-nos are going to be going, what a cleft lip and palate is, and the purpose of the no-nos, and any other questions they might have asked. And there will be an alum with you to do the project. Yes.
I'm so sorry. Oh, thank you. Usually I'm never a lady. Maybe that's universal. I know, right? I don't know if this, I'm just going to put it out there. I know for me, I like to adapt to different types of learning styles. Will there be like a one sheet or like a little training card just for our talking points?
Yes.
Great.
Yes. But as we said earlier today, what we want is for everybody here to experience the activities at RYLA, what you're going to have over the 3 days, and if you have any questions, and what you feel like right now. If you have any issues, challenges, opportunities to ask questions, that you can ask them now. We're not having people make them now because we really wanted you to enjoy your lunch. But if you have any questions, please feel free to ask.
I have a question. Sure. How might they debrief this activity? So let's say the kids do it, and they get them done, and then the role of the counselor would be a debrief, to lead a debrief. How might they do that?
Thanks, Susan. What a setup. Great setup.
I convince my students in high school that I have a terminal illness where I can't raise my voice above normal speaking level, where my throat spontaneously explodes and I'll just die out on the floor. Because the young ones can be very gullible. But if that doesn't work, do the clapping. Always works. So, communicating. This exercise was really all about an open form of communication. And we feel so strongly that unless we communicate well with each other, we can't lead each other. And that's the goal in RYLA, in the Rotary Youth Leadership Awards, is to get to leadership. And that's why you will also do vocationals throughout the camp with students in addition to this question activity that we did before. Before we move into some debrief, did anybody share something particularly cool, or did anyone learn something really amazing, or I don't know, weird facts or fun things, Shaylee?
I learned that Howard went to the same high school.
No way! Oh.
Wow. Lol. Pride.
I know Lowell.
What do you mean, kind of lol? There's like lol or not lol. Okay, cool.
Somebody here is more active than me. She goes to the gym every day. I struggle to get out of the house to go to just go out. So I think living a much healthier life than I am. Pretty.
But I did learn that Robert and I both really like our favorite dark chocolate. He's lactose intolerant.
I am.
I heard that too.
One or two more.
We had a pretty epic discussion about why waffles are better than pancakes.
You're both in agreement there.
Well, we didn't put French toast into the mix, but waffles over pancakes.
We'll invite Camp RYLA. Anybody in the back? Interesting or kind of cool?
Like this year, I'm gonna make sure to bring the right shoes.
Yes, the right shoes, boo.
Huh?
Closed toe.
Closed toe. Yeah, got it.
Bring shower
Wow. Anderson?
I learned that Sam is taking salsa dancing classes, and so I think the DJ of RYLA should play some salsa.
It might be like a RYLA talent show.
There you go.
Who's the DJ this year?
Larry.
Did you hear that?
Yeah.
Somebody how to do salsa? Sam, can you do that?
I'm sorry?
Way of communicating, you can teach other people how to do salsa.
I probably start that, yeah.
Yes, Art.
Yeah, Jack Paul and I learned just now that something about the efficacy of RYLA as a program for leadership, and that both Karen and Josh are now presidents of their. Are you not president?
No, we're just members. We're members of the same fraternity, just in different schools.
Same fraternity at their schools, which is a service-oriented fraternity, which is kind of cool. Karen's a newly elected president.
Very good. So everybody learns in different ways. Some people, they need to be up, touching, moving. Some people, they like to listen. Some people learn through seeing. Is there anyone who feels like, man, they're like getting a little anxious, they need to get up, they want to maybe help me as a scribe?
A good speller.
Very good.
Yeah, that's not the requirement, right?
Sure. Yeah, that would be great.
Ooh, Larry.
Throwing upon you the green marker.
I want a football.
Mint.
All right, here we go.
Larry, in our debrief, we want to give the group to give us feedback, because we're going to do these activities as well with the students, with the youth, when they arrive to camp. And I'd like to hear a couple things that went really well in both of the last two exercises, and a couple things that we need to improve so that we can continue to redesign and to make these activities even more effective to build strong communication and better relationships. So with that, I'm going to hand it to the group. Some ideas about how we could either make the activities better or what was particularly effective.
The activities of the camp in general, or the activities of debriefing?
These two communication activities. Jacqueline?
I definitely like the 1 to 2 minute vocational moment because that gives that freedom of, talk about whatever you want to talk about. It's not as structured, so learning about, I talked about my injuries, and so we're just talking about different things, so it's more whatever you feel like the salsa and volunteering, so I definitely like the 1 to 2 minute vocational.
You repeat that, wonderful. So, the freedom of the vocational.
Yeah.
I know from last year's meeting, we met our co-counselors at the very end and we found out family names, but I really like how at the beginning we were sat next to our co-counselors. This gave us more time to talk to each other rather than just exchange information after them.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Robert, that's a secret.
Thanks so much.
Can I make a suggestion?
Obvious.
When you do that, can you come up with like one word?
Clarification, at the camp, are the students doing pairing, sharing with just one person? You know, during that 5-minute exercise, 10-minute exercise, or are they getting to deal with everybody in your team?
Our intention is to start one-on-one at first, and then in a second round to open to the group, and then finally to do some whole group sharing across the whole camp.
If we're doing that, I felt the 5-minute first question was a little long.
Okay. So shorter times. Shorter times.
I think when you're in the instructional would have helped because we're like, who's going to go first to choose an A and a B, and then determine who's going to go first, and you get to decide. Does B go first or does A go first? So it's not that who goes first.
Clearer instructions.
Pardon?
Clearer instructions.
Clearer instructions, yes.
I kind of, like, not to go against you or anything, but like, I kind of like the fact that, for example, in our 4 minute thing, like, you had, because like, you know how usually when you're in a group, they're like, oh, the youngest person goes first, go in order or something like that. But I felt like, since we had got this week, it's more, since we don't, like, not really know anything, like, we didn't really put people out of their comfort zone yet. For example, for us, like, we were kind of just like trying to figure out who was gonna go first, and then she decided to go first, and then like she was like, oh, it's like you down there, and I was just like, no, I thought we were gonna go in like a circular thing, and then we kind of just like didn't really like force it, and we kind of forced it to go, but
So balance the direction with flexibility.
not really, like, forcing someone to.
Would we say flexibility?
Yeah.
Flexibility.
Yes. I was referring to the partnership,
The part.
not the group share.
2 more things?
Me?
Sure.
So I would say that for camp, and I mean, it happened a little bit organically here, but to start with a general introduction of who you're sitting with. So if it's the entire team, at least names what schools, grades, whatever, and then start the pairing to the name. Because, I mean, I know everyone at my table, but I was only talking to TJ, and then we did the vocational, and I was talking to, I don't know who. So I think, at least for the campers, to do names first, at least.
Got it.
Introduction.
Introduction first.
Introduction first.
Steve, do you want to bookend this?
I'm sorry.
Do you want to give us our last piece of feedback?
Oh, sure. So I loved the questions. Thought they were really high quality. I was reflecting that I felt like I knew Jenny much better than I would somebody in the average 20-minute conversation. And so I thought the questions were terrific. Thought the cap of what would you trust this person to lead you was also a terrific way to end that exercise. And then I thought your vocational example was a terrific way that you saw maybe when we moved into the vocation speech. I think having an example, a quality example, immediately either sets the bar and invites somebody to be a little, to share something a little bit about themselves, as opposed to maybe more superficial topics.
Great. So sort of the I do, we do, and you do format.
Yeah.
I do, we do, you do. Yeah. Great. We hope that we're giving the sense that we're open to feedback so that we become better leaders. And we want you to be open to feedback with the youth so that you're able to lead them more effectively as well. So that is it for me right now. Next time I see you, I have really fun activities, and I am going to hand it back to. I can do that, sure. Throughout the camp, we're relating everything back to these 5 practices. And so in these exercises, and especially in the vocational, where did the group feel like the 5 practices came in? What was sort of most relevant of these 5 practices to you?
I had to come up with an acronym. Nice and brief. Model, inspire, challenge, enable, and encourage.
How many had Gregory as the most honorable? What about Sinbad? What about Ivan?
This is most wonderful.
28 had Ivan as the most honorable. Okay, those of you who had Abigail as most honorable, what was your rationale? Why did you think she was the most honorable? Yes.
I guess because she was under the influence of someone who wanted her child. I mean, that's pretty bad. So she, it's not honorable to give up your child, but I think she was under duress and wouldn't have been something because she was made up.
How about Slug? Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, for Abigail, it's like she's still willing to honor her agreement with it.
She honored her agreement.
Can everyone speak louder, please?
Yeah. And actually, despite like it being
good idea.
Alright, but yeah, even though it's like her first child, Abigail's still willing to agree or stand up to her agreement, and she's doing all this work to get to Gregory, who she loves. But despite all that, she's still powering through, and people are helping her along the way. So I think that's why she's the most honorable.
Anybody else? Yes.
So I read Abigail was honorable because, her motive or her goal was to get Gregory involved, but then all this other stuff happened. Louder. So she was trying to get to Gregory, and I felt like that was a really noble cause. And also, like, what happened to her in this story was really mostly because of uncontrollable circumstances. So it's really what everyone else, what really everyone else is really influenced her possible decisions and decision making.
Okay. Of those of you who voted for Slug, what was your rationale? Yes.
Okay. I truly believe Slug is the hero of this story. He steps up, he does what is right, and rides off in the sunset with the woman. He's my winner.
Happy ending.
Happy ending.
Anybody else? Anybody else with Slug? Yes, Hal.
I would just say, might makes right.
Okay. What about Gregory? Yes.
Well, I picked Gregory because he wasn't in love with Abigail, right? I mean, she's the one who goes, nowhere in the story does it say that he's in love with her, and now she appears to him and she says, okay, here I am, and by the way, we're going to have a baby, and we're going gonna give it away. So, Greg,
So that was good because they didn't really have communication between them, like deciding. So I thought this might be like, because he got to decide like disdain, so it might have been like an ongoing situation, like not communication. So I thought it might have been that. But then I was actually like from between Gregory and Ivan too.
All right, now we go to Sinbad. 12 people supported Sinbad. Yes, sir.
13, I didn't vote. I chose Sinbad because despite the story around why she needed to get over to the other side, Sinbad says, I'll take you, and this is my price. And so he fulfilled his contract, which is to take Abigail to the other side. So he fulfilled, because if you look up the definition of honor, it's to adhere to what is right or to conventional standards.
And argue with Google, okay? Anyone else? Anyone else want to talk about Sinbad? Why you voted for Sinbad? Okay, Ivan, overwhelming choice, 28. Who thought Ivan was the right person? Yes.
So Ivan's the real MVP. Oh, I do have to stand up? Okay. So Ivan's the real MVP because he doesn't really do anything, and that he doesn't want to get involved. You know, there's alligators in that river, and we shouldn't blame him for not wanting to cross the river, you know?
So he did nothing, so no harm, no foul. Anybody else want to talk about Ivan? Yes, in the back.
Well, it sounded like, it says that that's her friend, and that, you know, she was going to him to like vent and explain the situation. So it sounds like he was there, like, just being a good listener, but he didn't want to get in the middle of all the drama.
Okay, so he just opted out.
Yeah.
Well, I surmised from the last sentence that Slug and what's her name had this plan from the beginning. I thought this was going to be. And Ivan followed the best
reality TV show.
Ivan followed the best advice I ever got. You never get involved with anybody that's crazier than you are.
Okay. Anyone else want to talk about Ivan?
Oh, it was the honorable thing. So, I mean, he basically said this whole thing, he smells a lot of fish. Yeah, especially, and said he didn't want to be involved. So I thought he had the most integrity.
He just said, no, not my problem.
He was the only one who didn't use emotional or physical intimidation to come to his decision.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to now add one more level to this. We're going to come up with group decisions. So we're going to do 2 tables at a time. So these 2 tables will be one team. And these 2 tables will be another team right here. And you 2 will be another team. All right. And
let's just bring our chair, Randy.
Another parents, if they see a name on there, it starts to build that relationship between somebody in Rotary and the patient.
Great idea. If somebody in here would like to work on it.
Well, doesn't the person who makes the no-no have a pen right there and they could just...
So you're saying write on it maybe?
Yeah. Yeah, with an indelible marker, the person who makes
Made
that.
by Rotary.
A fabric writer, no, their name.
Or a Sharpie.
Yeah.
Thank you. I was thinking you meant something totally separate. Thank you. Any other suggestions, comments about no-nos, questions about the grid?
Just briefly, overview, I thought it was great examples. I love this idea. This is really, I mean, it covers so many bases. And I think it's great you're going to show the video to everyone, not just the counselors.
Right.
I just want to also add, as it was mentioned before, some people didn't actually understand the concept of shelter box. And to have a 3, 4, 5-minute video on shelter box as well, so that everyone understands the reach of Rotary what we do, why we're doing this, and it covers so many different bases, so that when they're at the shelter box place, they understand.
So we will take that up and do it on the activities that we are doing. We're not doing shelter box.
We're not doing shelter box this year.
Please forget everything I said.
I really like the positive comments about the no-no.
Okay, no-nos is great.
No-nos is great.
But we will take suggestion on each activity and what it's for to make sure there's paperwork there answering questions and to see how we can inspire a shared vision, model the way. And Dave, you want to say something?
Well, it just, Richard's comment just, inspired something in me is,
He inspired a shared vision.
sort of, yeah. So, all of this is one project with an organization that partners with Rotary. There are lots of others. RI has great materials, in 2 and 3 minute formats that we might want to kind of fit in somewhere to let them know how this is just one example of how we are reaching around the world, not just a medical mission, but sanitation and water
and everything that Rotary does.
And there's so many of those to choose from that do such a good job. And at some point in the program planning, in this process, we might want to punctuate by from the small picture to the big picture, however it works out.
Can you see me taking a note here? Anything else? Anything to make you more comfortable about what these are used for, where they go, how these are often Rotarian-sponsored missions, how many people are on a team, where they go? Nope? Anything? Yes?
What happens if campers ask how they can get enrolled?
Actually, then we'll have the site, you can tell them to Google whether it's this organization, other organizations that are sponsored, that's Rotary helps sponsor, you can do that. Give them a website. They can Google all these organizations. Thank you, Lynn. Next, yes.
All right, we're all right. Okay, so I'm real quick, I'm just going to say there's another hands-on activity. We're not going to do it today. I'm sure you'll have lots of questions about it. I have lots of questions. But it's the mural project. And of course, that gives you a lot of opportunity for collaboration, inspiring a shared vision, challenging the process, all of the 5 practices. So I'm just mentioning it to you so that you know, and you'll be prepared. There's going to be an alum and some people there to help guide that activity, okay? But that's another real hands-on team. Your team will go and do a mural project, okay? So I don't really have a lot of answers about all the details, but I just wanted to give you a preview. You good? All right. And now we're going to bring on an activity. Oh, sure, yes. Now we're going to do a hands-on activity with John. Would you like to come up? Oh, I'm wrong. No, it's sorry, John, sorry. Connor, come on back, please. So we have an exciting project that Connor is going to lead. You're on. Thank you. Take it away. Sorry.
Those cookies are really good.
Yeah.
Wow. 11 for the left handle. Okay. Leadership is a way of thinking. It's a way of acting. And most importantly, leadership is a way of
Communicating.
Who was saying communicating? Communicating. And now, I'd like to put our communication skills to the test in a couple ways. I have some simple activities, 2, which we'll also do with the students who come to RYLA, and you'll be facilitating them for them. These activities are very simple, but they require communication, teamwork, and leadership. But to get going, we need to create a forum to work in. We need all the table. And then just a question, is everyone like pretty much finished with lunch? Does anyone want more time? Good, great. So, I'm going to start with the groups, because we're going to begin with 2 groups. And everyone on this side is going to be group 1. Remember that. Everyone along this row is going to be group 2. And then I'd like to keep the teams together. So if this first table, we'll stick with group 1 on this side. You guys go with group 2 on that side, group 1 on that side, and group 2 on that side. Cool? Okay. So hold in mind your groups, and after we finish clearing the room, then we'll get into those groups. I think the smartest way to do this is to first stack all of the chairs against your wall, and then to push the table to the side.
I can throw it
as 1 and 5. And then you could say it's consensus. We started out with kind of a skewed agreement to begin with. But we shared the disagreements, we had a healthy discussion, and everybody had a chance to say why they agreed or disagreed, and just because they didn't agree with me, that's okay.
And David, do you endorse the rankings as they came out of your group?
I have a different first ranking.
Okay, I'll rephrase it. If you were asked to come up here and present your group's rankings...
I'm comfortable with the ranking as it is.
Okay. One of the things that came out of all this is how important the process is. And obviously, as your teams are debating how to do the ropes course, or how to do the mural, or how to do the other activities at RYLA Camp, we've all seen it. The kids come off the bus when they get dropped off, and you will have the alpha female, the alpha male. They've been hanging on the bus for 2 hours with their friends from school, and now they get to RYLA Camp, and they're deliberately dispersed, so they're not with their friends. They don't carry any baggage, hopefully, positive or negative. They're not the captain of the football team. Nobody cares. They're with people they've never met before. And as a result, hopefully there's some lowering of, I don't know what other word to use other than esteem, baggage, or whatever, positive or negative. And we're there to help develop leaders and to help facilitate. And one thing that we've talked about this morning, making sure it's a safe place. Part of your job as a facilitator is to make sure that the alpha male or the alpha female doesn't take charge of your group and just dominate the whole discussion on everything. Because one thing that has been shown over and over again by studies by the military, studies by business schools, is group decisions tend to be better than any one individual decision. It can be, hey, that blue would look great in the bedroom, and your significant other says, yeah, but it clashes with the hallway, and you hadn't thought about that. Or the new house is beautiful, it's going to be great, yeah, but what's the commute going to be like? They add a perspective that you may not have heard. One of the things that is important as a consensus builder and as a facilitator is if you want to get a quick decision, just tell people to vote. That's a peculiarly American way of resolving things like this, where there is no right answer. We tend to just default, let's just vote on it and get it done. And a couple of the groups did that. And they got a decision right away, and I'm not sure everybody in that group endorsed the decision. Because you can also have tyranny of the majority, where 2 or 3 people have thoughts and a thought process that's aligned, and they just keep outvoting the rest of the group on every single issue. And after a while, the people in the minority just put their hands in their pockets, they stop talking, they stop participating, and they no longer feel ownership on any of the decisions that are made. So part of your job as a facilitator is to get everyone involved and to pull out the quieter, perhaps shyer people and get them involved in the decision making. And make sure that one or two dominant personalities don't just overwhelm the whole group, and make sure that everyone has a chance to have his or her opinion heard. As we went around the room, the groups that made sure to hear everyone's opinion, they came up with a decision that pretty much everyone in the group can support because they could buy into the process. And that's one of the things that you're going to have to do as a counselor at RYLA camp, is help them develop the process. How can you do that? Open-ended questions. What if? You have half the group wants to go left, half the group wants to go right. They can't seem to get a decision made. They're immobilized. Well, what if? What if we go down the middle? Instead of going red or blue on the banner, what if we do purple? What if we do green? And model the way by showing them how to facilitate, so that when they go back to their school and their Interact Club or whatever organization, they can implement some of these policies. Last year, one of the girls in the group that I was a counselor with Karen, was involved in her Interact group at her high school. And she commented on how many people showed up at the first meeting of the year. And then they had their first activity, and 6 people showed up. So her takeaway initially was, God, what a bunch of losers. They don't even come to our activity. And then as I talked to her a little bit more over the weekend, well, it wasn't the group's idea, it was her idea to do this particular community service project. And no, she didn't really solicit input from anybody else. She felt she was president. She could simply announce what the activity was. Well, the members of her club voted with their feet. They didn't show up. And that was a process over the course of a couple of days that she finally seemed to realize that she needed to pull people out. And by Saturday afternoon, she was really good at this in our group settings, asking people, you know, Sally, you haven't said anything in a while. What do you think? And you could just see how the skill set improved over the space of a couple of days. So as Susan mentioned, we're not going to do this particular exercise at RYLA camp. This was more for your information so that you can see how to build consensus in a situation where there's no right answer. There simply isn't a right answer. And we can argue till we're blue in the face about these, you know, alleged rankings. And again, this is simply a fairly common little exercise that's done in quite a few business and law schools around the country, where you're doing facilitating and how to build a consensus. So anyhow, any questions, I'm happy to answer. I'm sorry if anyone was offended. It wasn't intended to be a commentary on the current Me Too and related environment.
But it's not a commentary, I'm sorry, I'm feeling you're just putting it aside.
No, not at all. Not at all. I'm trying to tell you,
No, I understand that, but I'm just saying in terms of the exercises that we do thoughtfully with each other in these spaces, I'm hoping that we also get tools of how to, if somebody in the group, regardless if it's this activity or any activity, I'm hoping that we're also given the tools to help as mandated reporters or to share if things are serious in the group and identify it. What is our process to be able to create that safe space? You know, that's why I brought it up. I'm not knocking specifically on the exercise. I'm just saying I am very surprised that we aren't also given some at least little tools to be able to also recognize when a conversation may be you know, triggering to somebody else and what that process is. That's the only reason why I spoke.
Points well taken.
And you've got mandated reporters sitting right here at the table that are going to be there the weekend as well. Right here too.
We're also doing a Thursday night, right before RYLA. We are really going to drill down on the what ifs and if people get triggered and how do you deal with that. Okay, so that's coming.
Would it be helpful to talk about it in the room at our tables?
Yes.
Yes, it would.
just because, like when that stuff, you can't just put it away, right? So maybe there's space to just do that. Now, I don't know how we are on time, but sometimes just to purge that just a little bit and say, well, what are some of the things we could do, right? How do we handle triggering? Maybe that would be useful, and we could report out, and that way we'd have group, a little bit of a group idea. Do you think we could spend 10 minutes to do that?
Sure. Got the okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
So what about if, I'll just throw something out. What if we just talk at the table and come up with ideas for when someone is triggered? How do you recognize it? And what could you do or say that would show that you see them and feel that, that you allow it into the space, right? Without somebody feeling like it's being pushed aside. And maybe then we could share from each table some of those ideas, and then we come away with some group concepts that, because we're smart people in the room who've been trained in various things, not to mention we're feeling people and we know what would make us feel better. How about if we did that? Does that seem good?
Yeah.
Okay, so how about
Take 5 minutes and do that, and actually, and then we'll go around to the tables and to see what ideas we came up with.
Yeah.
Okay? So please, with your groups, what to do in the trigger, right?
So for those of you who have RYLA courses.
Okay, so how would we know?
Give examples of your
This is why our professional.
A little louder, Susan.
Putting the bell down, Lindsay.
Oh, excuse me.
We're going to go around the room now and go around by groups at the table to see how you would facilitate handling triggers. Okay? And Patrice is taking notes. Thank you, Cindy. Would you
So
represent?
our group really came up with three observations that we thought would be helpful. The first one is that we have to allow time to listen to whatever the concern is that's raised. If we're picking up some kind of a trigger or reaction to whatever the conversation might be. So first allow that time. And then, depending on your experience, if you're a new counselor, then you've got a partner. And so you've got somebody with you there that the two of you can rely on each other, so don't feel like you yourself have to figure out what to do. But then also we've had some experiences as counselors at this table where we've had situations with our campers where we have taken them to the nurse. In this case, I'm thinking of a situation where Rich was very helpful a couple years ago with a camper. And it's helpful to have somebody that's the expert in that area of mental health that maybe we don't have expertise in, and that was the students, this camper situation. So those are our 3 points. Listen, rely on your partner, and we've got experts to help us out.
Use the professionals at camp. Thank you. This table? 2 tables?
Sure. So we just want to echo, the importance of making sure that you're present and listening to people so that everyone can feel heard. And there's a lot of ways you can check in with your campers, whether you're giving each other a thumbs up. There's a lot of different moments of downtime that you can check in with campers. So the important thing is being present and aware, and so that you can listen authentically. And from there, there's a couple other options, but that is a really, really important start.
Thank you. Table in the back. Thank you.
So one thing I want to add, personal opinion that I forgot to share with the group, that it is hard recognizing triggers sometimes. So you always have to be alert and attentive as a counselor to recognize each and every one of your campers and pay attention to them. That's for trigger-wise. But we came out with several exercises to do with triggers. One is talking to the camper and making them write down on a note. If they're not comfortable with sharing the event, they write out on a note, keep it for themselves, and you can ask them, hey, are you comfortable sharing with me, with the group, about what happened in this situation? I think
just making space for it in the beginning. Is there anything kind of in your way so that people can just kind of have a minute to acknowledge and then hold it there, just making space for it internally for them to have it, and then if they care to share or not share.
Thank you. Anything else? Thank you. This one.
So our group was more, not to take away from the importance of triggers, but what do you do after? You know, some people in this room are legally mandated reporters. We know that the nurses are the go-to, but after we've acknowledged a trigger, after we've acknowledged an abusive relationship or something, and where do we as counselors or alums take it from there was our bigger question.
Lynn, you want to respond about training on Thursday night?
We'll cover this Thursday night in training, so that it's
So
fresh.
that-
That way it'll be fresh in your mind,
And that's why we didn't do it today.
Right.
So that it would be fresh, it's going to be covered Thursday night for your safety. Thank you, Lynn.
Ditto.
Okay,
You're the designated chair.
We didn't really come up with tips. We kind of actually trailed off and talked about our, like both Anna and I have been counselors before, so we talked about our personal experiences, like having those conversations with the kids that we've had in the past.
a little bit louder and
So
share that
both
part.
Anna and I have been counselors before, so we didn't really talk about like tips, but more so our personal experiences, having been counselors, having had kids as campers, and like having those discussions. After like the panel, usually that's when that conversation will come up, where it's more of like a heavy topic. And you know, there's a lot of power in the word pass, in terms of like when you're going on a circle and sharing and giving them the space to like take, you know, the time to collect their thoughts and their feelings if they need to. But also like pressing the fact that like we all have a responsibility to report if we know that there might be some kind of harm or safety issues. And like on Thursday, we will just like, you know, talk about that. But then just making sure that they know that there is like a certain degree of confidentiality, but also responsibility on our part.
Thank you.
So for us, we actually didn't get to dealing with the triggers. We were talking more about recognizing the trigger. As you're with your team, you get to know them. And when we were saying, when you notice a change in their behavior, somebody who's very talkative all of a sudden becomes very quiet, might be something to recognize. Why all of a sudden that person became really quiet, or if they isolate themselves from the group. So those are some of the things that we were looking at. How do we spot it? And Mo, I appreciate you actually sharing with us in order for us to have this conversation.
Well, I mean, I think we wanted to, of course, acknowledge Mo as well for bringing this up. Sometimes the things that are hardest for us to discuss are the things we need to talk about the most, and where we all come from different places of leadership and experience. It's valuable for us to hear other people's input as well. So I think it's a valuable route that we've taken as a group, and also just in building trust in the process of why we're all here. Collectively, I think we're, as a group, more informed now of each other's experiences, and then also talking a little bit more about being aware of triggers with our things.
I will add, Sam, it's great to facilitate our conversation, and you should with everybody. I don't know who you are in the corner. Yes, you, because we didn't get a chance to hear everybody's names. But I think you standing up and recognizing that we cannot transition to the next topic, the way you facilitated that, take notes.
Yeah, that was helpful.
That is, I'll be honest, I was a little bit re-triggered by the initial response. Let that little sit for a second. So I want to say thank you,
right,
because it shows that you've had experience in this area, right? And this is valuable for all of us. So I just, I just want to say thank you for that.
Thank you.
I just want to say one thing to the group is that when that stuff exists, it's like our efficiency can't pave over it. Like we can't be like, oh, but we're headed for the time, because it leaves everybody with a gaping hole in their heart, right? Because we've paved over. It's like pave over the parking lot. Like no, you have to actually make space for what's really happening, and it doesn't show up as efficiency, right? Because we can't be efficient with humans, right? So there's that. We just have to carve it out, and you have to be willing to stand in it and be in the discomfort. And I've offended people completely unknowingly like that, and you see someone shut down, and you have to take a break, check in, I'm so sorry, whatever it is, you have to navigate people. A lot of human beings, and it's a contact sport, this human being stuff, so we're going to run into each other, and it's okay, right? We learn something from every one of those experiences, so thank you.
And our last table.
Well, I'm going to have David speak because I think the Wessex is an important thing for everyone to know about.
Part of this conversation would feel better if you all have gone through the new online youth protection training. How many people here have received an email saying Rotary Wessex? Okay, so a few of you, mostly non-Rotarians, it looks like. We've sent the list to Dave Bertini, he's the youth protection officer for the district, and he should have sent out a link to each one of you. If you haven't received one, or you don't think you have, check your spam, make sure you check your email. I just added these three folks back here since they were on a Rotarian list, so we have to send Rotarians using a different means. But if you're not on that list, or if you haven't gotten information, check with me or check with, where's Anna? There you are. Our youth protection coordinator. She's the one that's going to close the loop, on all the details regarding that. But on that site, there'll be an online training, there'll be a volunteer application, an affidavit. There's a series of questions that kind of raise a lot of the contextual situations that that you may have encountered in the past or will be encountering as a volunteer.
Thank you.
I have one question, David. For the alumni who are under 18, do they have to take a youth protection training?
No.
Do they have to fill out the volunteer form?
We can have them take youth protection training if they're under 18. It certainly would be worth it.
Yeah, I think everyone should.
Y'all taking it.
Anna, did you want to add how long it takes this for, how long it takes, and about
So it is a new process, and so please put aside about an hour and a half. That's the average. Some people can complete it sooner than that. Now, the thing that we find is holding people up the most are reference checks. So when you have your 3 reference checks, make sure that you let them know whatever communication they prefer, that you have selected them as their reference. They will receive an email from Wessex. So if they don't get it on their primary, make sure that you tell them check your spam.
Can you spell where it's coming from?
Yeah. W-E-S-S-E-X.
Wessex, okay.
The email will actually...
That's their dominant leadership style. We've got about 4 or 5 people. 6. How many people are koalas? Wow. Clearly we've got a dominant.
We're going to get these guys.
And how many people are peacocks? Okay.
It's usually the most popular one. I know.
And if you're like me, I'm a lion. So how many lions do we got? There we go. Lions. Yeah.
This is Rotary. There should be no lions.
There you go. You're both. So it seems like we got a lot of lions in the room, and we've got a lot of koalas in the room. Yeah. And we've got a few others. So I would like to start off with just what did you learn in your group, right? I didn't give you a definition of any of these animals, and I purposefully did that because I don't want to give you a definition of what you think your leadership style is or what something else is. And more importantly, I don't want to put anybody in boxes because I think in past years we kind of say, oh, you're a lion, so you're like this. But the reality is we have all of these traits within us. It's just, these are our natural dominant traits that we use in any given circumstance, right? And so just what did you kind of learn from your experiment here, talking with other people about your own leadership style, but also about what other people said? Did anything seem surprising to you? Yeah.
Yeah, we just talked a lot about how it's important to make deliberate space for each kind of personality to shine.
Absolutely. Completely agree, yeah. Anybody else?
In our group, we talked about how our personality types, when we took this assessment in previous years, have changed and evolved.
Yeah, that's a good point to make. That's kind of the funnest part. How many people changed this year if you're taking it? We've got definitely a few people. And out of those people who raised their hand, can you tell me more about what you were before and what you are?
So previously I was a lion, and now I'm a RYLA. I feel like I kind of had to shift my perspective, interacting with larger people, larger groups of people, and different opinion. So I feel like I've shifted to a koala so I can accommodate and understand and listen more proactively than just being reactive and saying, I have the answer, I'm going to fix it right now. So I'm just changing up my own leadership style to be that.
And if I could ask, like, what was that process difficult for you to go through?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because, you know, I'm one of 7, so I had to make myself really loud and out there and, you know, fight my battle through life. And I thought about it, I was like, I don't really need to do that now. So I think, I feel like it's phases. And realistically, I feel like I was a little bit of everything, and it's situational. Like, I could kind of calm down, but if I need to fight my way through traffic, I will do it.
There you go.
Yes.
It's all about self-awareness.
So yeah, I found, I've taken this so many times, I feel like, I can't remember, you know, it's taken this so many times over the years, but mine has definitely changed. And what was interesting is my numbers were fairly consistent across, even though my largest number was Al. And, you know, I remember in the past, I was kind of like split down the middle with, you know, Owl and Koala. And now I'm more Owl and Peacock, with Lion as the 3rd and Koala as the 4th.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, I still have my analytical, but I think I've gotten to be a little more of a loudmouth too, so.
It's because you're president of your club.
Exactly. I think that's what it is. I have no choice right now, so like maybe there's other, but yeah, it's interesting how like it's changed.
Yeah, sweet. That's awesome. And did anybody in the room feel like, you know, outside of this room, outside of RYLA, you've met people with these leadership traits and you're like, that person is a peacock, like definitely, right? Or that person's an owl, right? You've all had those experiences. Could someone tell me about that, maybe like one instance or something like that where they face somebody and they're like, yeah, you know, you kind of have to adapt to their leadership style, and tell me more about that process.
So as a realtor, you do a lot of sales, and you're interacting with the buyer or the seller. So being able to adapt to the personality of who's in front of you helps with closing the sale. So for instance, if I have somebody who is a driver or a lion, they want the details and the facts, and they want it on point. They don't want me to rattle on. They want it concise, they want the truth, and they want the facts. So being able to adapt on learning who that person is that you're speaking with in front of you makes a huge difference.
So that's a great point you make, and I think one of the reasons why I also asked that question was, you know, especially if you're new here, you know that there's so many different styles in your group, and sometimes you'll have to adapt, not only as a counselor or as an alumni, but the people in your team will also have to adapt to that style. And sometimes some of these students have never been able to actually experience something like this. So it's really important we do this activity because now you kind of understand, oh wait a minute, this is how it would be like if a camper was to take this, you know, this assessment. and this is how they might work with somebody else, and what they would learn, and it kind of gives you perspective. I know we had a hand in the back.
Tim Leary from the Rotary Club of Menlo Park. I've worked with a woman for almost 35 years in a small office situation. In the first 10 years in the office, she was in a very task-oriented role and did a great job. But then, after that period of time, transitioned to a role that is very relationship-oriented. And she is 110% peacock. And once she got in the right seat on the bus, so to speak, or the right role in the office, she's just blossomed not only professionally but personally, because now her values and how she likes to communicate has all come together. And it's been, having known her for so long, it's been such a wonderful thing to see her realize so much of her potential.
That's amazing. Thank you for sharing that. Did anything seem surprising to you about somebody else's style or your own style?
It's surprising how how you see yourself based on what you think of yourself and your own self-concept versus how other people perceive you as. Because, for example, I always scored higher as a lion, and a lot of people were, well, the lion part not very surprised, but a lot of people usually associate you with being a peacock if you do know me personally. Peacock's actually my lowest score. Exactly. It just comes to show about how you see yourself compared to how the world sees you. How you may be feeling is going to be totally different from what other people see you as, and that's why tying it back to the concept of leadership and communication. Whatever you're trying, the message you're trying to communicate is not always going to be understood because you guys are both coming from different environments. And there's always going to be like that small overlap where you guys do understand the message. And I feel like it's good to be aware that these are really just boxes. Everyone does have like similar traits to these. It just depends, someone said earlier, situationally. Sometimes in a group environment, I will be lying. Other times, I'll be the peacock, or other times I'll be the koala. And it's really just trying to find that synchrony between your group in order to accomplish the task at hand.
Thank you for sharing that. Art?
Yeah, I always thought it was important that the campers not only realize their own traits, but also begin to recognize the qualities of the other categories, and so that they can understand how the others in their teams are going to will behave, and there's what's making their style some of what they are.
Yeah.
And be tolerant to allow each type of person to have an opportunity to shine as a leader. So.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, that's a great point that you make there. Yeah. Yes.
I just wanted to add also, I think it's important to make sure the campers understand there's no right answer. Because I think sometimes they start to think that if they're not a lion, there's something wrong with them and they're not going to be a good leader. They think leaders have to be lions. And in fact, as someone pointed out, you may use all four of these depending on the situation.
Absolutely. Yeah, and just to emphasize that point, I think I was talking to Lynn yesterday and he told me that don't call it an exam or a quiz, because that kind of tells you that there is right or wrong answers. And so try to call it maybe an assessment or a survey of a style. And I know it might be a little hard to transition into that, at least for me, but that's really important you emphasize that as well to your campers so that they know that there is no right or wrong.
I think this is like a personality profiling system, and there are so many of them. It goes way back into the Saturdays. But it's a huge part of communication, and I call them languages. So going back to there's no right or wrong, it's what language do the campers speak in terms of their personality type. And I think if you can not only identify who you are, whether you're an owl, et cetera, but what is the camper's style of communication based on their personality type. So like Mary said, if your buyer or seller is an owl, then you speak to their language. So and because we encompass all of these personality styles, it's really important to be able to be multilingual, so to speak, and know who the camper is, what style they are, so that you can speak their language, so you can understand them and they can understand you. So I think this is so fascinating to me because this is a huge part of communication.
Absolutely, yeah. And that's a great transition, I think. Kind of ask where does someone or everybody in the room kind of see this activity and these leadership styles fall into the 5 exemplary leadership styles? If anybody can talk about that. Maybe Tim, you'll
There's a Rotary Wessex. And there are several documents that you'll have links to. The volunteer application form and affidavit is the one you should fill out first. The second you complete that and press the submit button, instantly an email is going to be sent out to the references you list. And so before you submit it, you might want to let your references know because you want them to receive it, know they're going to get it, and respond.
What do they need to do? Respond yes? Is it like
There's an email. They will get an email.
But like what level or commitment are they looking for? That's why, like, is it, hey my boss, I need you to respond to this email. It's just going to be like 3 questions. I just want to give the appropriate answer.
Something like that, yeah.
Okay.
Should we have already received this email, or this is something coming?
Coming.
Oh, okay.
For anyone who's a Rotarian that's coming, for any alums under 18, we just made a decision that you should fill it out, and so it'll be coming to you.
I'm not Rotarian though.
Yeah, so you should be on our RYLA list that we said.
We'll double check that everyone in this room is going to get it and fill it out. I think we have not said that the district has created an entirely new system, and that's why any fingerprinting done in the past or any approvals in the past have all changed because they've upgraded the process. So fingerprinting, 18 and over, and then youth protection training. If you do not receive the information, contact David or Ana Zambrano.
So I can personally attest to this. I filled out the forms yesterday. There's 3 forms if I'm right. There's 2 youth protections, and you have 1 volunteer form if I'm right. And then I have 1 question regarding the 3 contacts. I only entered their phone numbers because I didn't know their emails.
Then unless you enter their emails, they're not going to get a notice.
Okay. So I have to
fill
out the form again?
Yeah, you have to fill out the form with their email addresses.
Okay.
It's essential. Yeah. Josh?
Oh, sorry. Yes. I have a question. So last year when I did the similar thing as well, my references never got contacted because they never responded with anything.
Right.
So my question is this a new thing now where they have to respond to
Yes,
it?
yes, it's new.
Okay.
And it's all online.
Yeah.
I understand that some of us haven't received it yet.
Right.
And they said, you said if we don't get it, contact you and Anna.
Right.
If we don't receive it, by when should we start bothering?
I would say, by the end of this week.
Okay.
By Friday.
Definitely.
If you haven't gotten it by Friday, or if you haven't found it.
Is it coming from Dave Bertini's email or Wessex?
Rotary Wessex will be the message.
Rotary Wessex. Looking for it. Yep.
Back to the subject that triggered this discussion. In my mind, most of us role in all of this is simply going to be to recognize and be sympathetic and know the resources that we have. We're not really, most of us, capable of resolving them.
That's right.
And I think we need to be each recognize what it is we're really qualified to do.
So recognizing, being present, paying attention, noticing, getting to know your group, and seeing, some of the things that we've talked about here, any change in behavior, extra quiet, something going on, recognition, and refer. Does that make sense?
To me.
Okay.
And one more question so we can move on. Yes?
Yes, thank you for choosing me for last one. Before we move on, I do want to say thank you. I have have so much respect for you doing that, because the amount of courage you take, especially to say that to a bunch of people who you have never even met, takes so much courage. And also shout out to your group for having it, providing that platform of comfortability to share. And I also thank you, Miss, even though we haven't met personally, but for you to be one of the only people in this group to kind of recognize the fact and take the initiative to facilitate it really shows a lot. Because had we, I feel like in my personal opinion, had we just continued on the time, I felt like most feelings would have just been felt invalidated.
Yes.
And I feel like invalidation of a person's feelings shouldn't be something that's of RYLA's philosophies, especially since we are humans. We do feel stuff. And although we do have a lot of time or a lot of stuff to do on our schedule, sometimes we do kind of just need to slow down and breathe. So thank you.
We are going to wrap up, and I have a few important things to, as we go into the home stretch, wrap up with you. First, let's take a reading on our energy. This is great, this is crappy, this is okay. Where are we? Thumbs up, thumbs in the middle, thumbs down. Let me see, I want to see thumbs. Okay, some, right? Okay, thank you. Just wanted to thank you for being honest, and I just, it's really important because there's an arc, right? There's an arc to a training, and we are definitely in the home stretch. We asked you to play 100% out, stay at the end, and you're all done that fantastically. So here's what's coming. You're going to be getting ongoing support. So this is not the end. This was just the beginning, okay? And you're going to get ongoing support. It's going to come. We're going to give you tips and things coming over email to reinforce some of these things, to add some new information. We didn't want to load you up with too much today. We wanted you to have an experience. And what was that magic word we talked about? Real estate was location, location, location. But what was that other word? Facilitate. Facilitate, facilitate, facilitate. So I hope you got a good taste of that today. One of the things, I have a handout coming around, green handouts, can we get them going around? And that's just, you'll get more of those kinds of things later on. So do you realize you are sitting in your counselor pairs? Did we already talk about that?
What? Oh my God. Oh my God. I had no idea. That was slick, dude. Good job. I did that. 100%.
So we're going to have we're going to have a couple things happen right now. Number one, Lynn is going to say just a few words to wrap the day. Then we're going to pick numbers. Now the numbers are in the bag and for counselor pairs. So one of the pair will pick a number for that pair. And then based on your number, you'll be going up to the sheet and picking the name of your team, your hero name. Okay, so that's coming up, and we're going to show the video. So, is the video ready? You want to show it? Okay, so we're going to show the video. Then it's going to say a few words.
We have a meeting.
Yeah. touching.
You don't know if you're 9 or 6.
Unless it's like you're. I'll shoot you a text with my email too and reference credit. Thank you.
Haven't picked a number yet. Hair. Okay, Liz is going to wrap us up and then we'll move on to the
So here we are in the middle of chaos. I don't know if you can hear anything I'm going to say. There are 31 names over there who came this hero's journey this year. They're receiving numbers, 1 through
Interact clubs to help us get to know each other and to do a check-in and to see how our weeks are going. It's a 1 to 2 minute speech about whatever you want to talk about. No questions, can be anything in the world. So I'd like to demo what a vocational could look like. And if we're wondering like why do we call it vocational, I do not know. Josie McHale of Interact fame introduced me to this idea. And there's some rotary lore behind it. I know vocational normally means what do you do in your work? And it's an adjective, and we've turned it into this noun to be like what's going on in your life. So that's how we title it. Okay, so a vocational, a 1 to 2 minute speech where everyone listens to you speak about whatever you want. I'm going to do my vocational. What's been on my mind lately is that today is 2-2, which is normally kind of cool because it's 0202, it's like repetitive, but it's also February 2nd, 2020, or 02/02/2020, which is a palindrome. And I learned on the internet that the last time there was this kind of palindrome, numerical date-based palindrome, was 909 years ago on 11/11 in the year 1111. And then I learned that the next time this kind of date palindrome is going to come around is in 101 years on 12/12/2121. Yeah, so, but today is extra special because it is also the 33rd day of the year, another palindrome. And it's even more special because there are 333 days left in the year, which is only possible because normally there'd be 332, but this year is it's a leap year. And the fact that there are 33, it is the 33rd day of the year, and there are 333 days left is especially special to me because today is my 33rd birthday.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Connor. Happy birthday to you.
Let's do that 33 times. So, in your tables, please take 1 to 2 minutes each to listen to each other talk about whatever you like.
My whole name is one.
Okay, we're going to go around the room real quickly. 3 pieces of information. Who did you rank number 1? Who did you rank number 5? And what process did you use? Whatever it was, arm wrestling, voting, whatever process you used to come up with your rankings. We'll start over here. Who was number 1 with your group?
Our number 1.
Who was?
Our number 1 was
I did number 1. Who was 5? Sinbad. What process did you use?
we basically used the process of, we all started off with 3 different ideas. Like, I know all of our papers were pretty different, but the more we analyzed the situation and each described our point of view, we all started to have one common idea and kind of started agreeing with each other. So we didn't have to vote or anything, we all ended up voting.
Okay, so you just kept talking, yes?
Something that Caleb brought up in the group was to define, agree what honorable is. So once we had that platform, then we were able to start discussing and progressing further and doing process of elimination. Because there's like the moral, honorable, and then there's the contract honorable. And we just wanted to figure out which one we want to get to.
Okay, so you agreed on a definition before you went any further. Okay, next.
So our number one, our highest honorable was Ivan, and our least honorable was Abigail. And kind of like this group, we started talking as a group, and we figured out pretty quickly that we had our bottom three kind of aligned. So then we kind of debated of the two that we had left, who was really the top one, who was the second one. Eventually, we kind of just called a vote, and we all agreed.
So you ultimately ended up on a vote?
Yes.
Okay.
Just for the top two.
Okay.
I just wanted to say thank you for Cindy for pointing out the fact that Abigail loved Gregory. Gregory never loved her back.
It's just not clear. Not clear.
Okay, take on the back.
We chose Sinbad as most honorable and Abigail as least honorable. In our process, we talked about the transparency of everything and like, was everything agreed upon? For Sinbad, everything was agreed upon, but for Abigail, it was not communicated with Gregory about the circumstances of I'm gonna come to you and marry you. In the absence of that, we said we don't feel comfortable ranking them because of the absence of context, and we chose to love each and every one of them.
Nice one, there you go,
I want to Kansas answer.
Honorable.
Good. Number 5, Abigail. Yeah, in the beginning, we kind of like had a discussion and went around saying like our ranking. You guys hear me? We like went around saying our ranking.
Thank you. Way to go.
And then Dana made a really good point that we all read the story differently. So I kind of felt like there was no way of convincing one another, and like we didn't really want to convince one another. So we just did the average. Did the math.
These guys had a spreadsheet going. Okay, and I'll ask you, do all of you support the rankings as they came out?
I made sure they were first, though. I made sure they were okay.
Okay, I mean, all of you support the rankings to the extent you can stand up here and defend them in front of the whole group, or you're kind of biting your lip? All right, next group.
Yeah, so we're announcing a hung jury. But our conversation, I think, began floating through what would be the criteria by which we would come to a consensus. And because we didn't have consensus on that, we weren't able to move forward with our actual ranking.
Okay, so you started out with trying to come to a consensus on a process
to
analyze.
we didn't start out there, but like that's, I think, summarizes what we talked about. The ideas that we considered were an average. We have that here, we threw that out. Kind of getting tight on the definition of honorableness first. The fact that most of it is speculation and we need more context. And then the fact that this could just be a terrific race. And we should go forward with that.
So your decision is no decision.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, so our high ranking was Gregory was the most honorable, and Abigail was the least honorable. We started by seeing where everyone ranked on the most and across the board, and then saw where we didn't have consensus. Most of the middle was a consensus, so we started at the bottom and work out what the bottom was. We wanted to be careful not to just hear independently what the votes were, to not try and sway people until we had that discussion. And then we entertained the people we had 3 different people to start with for the top spot, and with the top spot, we explained our position, and then consensus grew. The middle's still a mess, but...
Okay, so you still are undecided on 3, 4, 5, or 2, 3, 4?
2 and 3 were kind of a toss-up.
Okay. But you also spent time on a process.
Yeah, sure.
Oh, the most important thing was Larry wanted to make sure we decided so we can go to Super Bowl.
That hosting process involved.
Okay, next.
So we all came to the table with slightly different opinions on how to approach this. Collectively, we agreed that in the style of this exercise, that as a group we didn't feel comfortable coming to a point of assigning more honorability or less, or pointing to it. In some ways, just because of the way the exercise was designed, we felt like some aspects of it were continuing biases that don't necessarily align to how our world operates or how we should think about things anymore. And so we made a collective decision not to assign a certain level of honorability to anyone. And that is our group.
So in the space of challenging the process, and I took off my book, it's really hard for me to say. So I've been in youth development work for about 20 years. And I want to trust the process. It's my first year as a counselor. I don't really know what the end game is of this exercise, but for me, I was actually very triggered by the exercise. As a woman of color, I know I'm bringing my biases in, but I don't know if we're really supporting, and I know I'm bringing my experience in of my perspective. And that's what kind of happened with our group, because once I shared, we went around the table ranking, and I was very shut off and shut down. And so Sam asked me for my opinion, and I said, you know, I'm actually very turned off by this exercise. I've been in youth development for 20 years, and if this is an exercise about consensus building, there are many other more positive and more inclusive ways to be able to express that. This exercise, if I have 20 years of youth development, I know how to de-escalate if someone's triggered in my group, okay? But I'm a first-time counselor. So what type of training do we as alumni or as educators or volunteers as Rotarians have to de-escalate a situation if one of our young people feel triggered the same way I just did? How are we supposed to shift to a happy activity in a safe, emotionally safe way? So that's why I'm challenging the process. If it's about consensus building, okay, but I don't think this is a very good exercise to express that. You're talking about possibly coercion, other themes of possible sexual assault. And I know I'm really reading into it, it's because that was my field of expertise.
So let me please just allow me to finish. And I'm only standing up here to say this because my group encouraged me to. They provided me a safe and vulnerable space to say it. Because I even shared with them, I don't know if this is the most appropriate space for me to express this. Maybe I want to talk to the facilitators. So that's the only reason why I'm saying that. But I feel that this may not be the best exercise to talk about consensus building.
Okay, and I've done that, and I appreciate your comments.
Thank you for sharing your thoughts. And we hope this was safe, as we wanted it to be with confidentiality and everything else in the room. This exercise, as John has said, is only to see the process. It is not something that will happen at RYLA. But it is only, so now what we've all learned, and I'm going to pass it back to John, is all about triggers and how to facilitate. And I'll let you finish the sentence.
Yeah, and I appreciate your comments. This was intended to be a low-key exercise with no right answer, and that is what I'm going to get around to. I've done many other consensus building exercises. The problem is, if you look deep enough at many of them, there's a right answer. This is not a morality play. It was not intended to be a morality play. It's not intended to be anything related to Me Too or anything like that. It was intended to be something where in a room with 65 people, you're going to probably have 65 opinions. So what do you do as a counselor when your group of 10 wants to go in 10 directions? And we'll get back to that in a moment. Okay, table in the back.
Okay, unlike the U.S. Senate, we decided we'd like to hear from witnesses.
You can tell by actually all the 4 people in the back here that we, on the other side, were browbeaten into their.
Well, we see your desk is pretty clean.
That's how, I mean, we were here fine, and they said, listen, you're going to come to our table. And then, you know what then they said? They said, and we all agreed. We ranked it all the same. So you got 50% of the votes on our side. 60. 60% because one of ours happened to agree with it. But we went with Ivan and Abigail.
Oh, thank you so much. And you're an educator, so you know. So you know what? Having fun is important because they're little babies. They learn to walk and talk, and they're not sitting, listening and trying to figure it out. They're not uptight. They're just having a good time. They want to move. They want to go somewhere. So the best learning comes when you're having fun. Turn to somebody and say, I'm going to have fun. Turn to your neighbor and say, I'm going to have fun. All right. Oh, yeah. So, we're going to share a secret with you. So, Lisa and I want you to know that we actually have alums sitting together, as well as staff sitting together, as well as your counselor pairs sitting together. And we now have an icebreaker for you to meet your other half, otherwise known as your table mate. Okay? So the first question we have is, and we would like each person to take 5 minutes to do all the talking before we switch. And the first question is, if you were going to become a close friend with your partner, please share what would be important for him or her to know. And they have 5 minutes to do the first person, and then we'll tell you to switch. Okay? We'll let you know, we'll ring the bell when it's time to switch. All right, so 1, 2, 3, go!